New York Yankees performance coach. This guy is an absolute killer, and I'm super pumped to have him on the show today. Dana Cavalea, World Series championship, leads and helps and serves some of the most prolific athletes in the world. And now he's focused on how to help CEOs and leaders scale, grow, and actually get to their absolute max performance. So check out this recording we did just the other day as Dana and I had a conversation about performance and how to max it out.
All right, brother. Before we get down to business, 12 years with the Yankees. So right off the bat, I know you got some great stories, some funny stories, but tell me one thing that like hits home with you in terms of a memory that you have working with Yankees for so long.
Well, the biggest memory is definitely I got to live out a dream. As a kid, I used to in 1996 I watched the Yankees win their first World Series of my era and my generation, and I got to see them do it with players like Derek Jeter and Mariano Rivera, and just some really amazing players. And they captured my heart that year. And so my greatest memory is in 2009 winning with those same players, many of those same players. And I always wanted to be a part of the champagne showers that were, taking place after each round that you win in the playoffs. And, that champagne, it tastes so good coming off your skin, and it's amazing. It burns your eyes like hell, but ultimately it's an amazing feeling. Just, I don't feel like we talk about winning enough in life. But winning is a whole lot of fun. And what's great about sports is, you celebrate your wins. And in life, I don't think we celebrate our wins. I think, so many of us get used to, celebrating either all the time for sometimes nothing at all. And others don't celebrate at all because it's never enough and it's never good enough. So what I always appreciated about sport and my favorite moments, it was every time we won, not just a game, because when we won a game, we were excited. But when we won the season, or we won the one round of the playoffs and moved on to the next, it was as if that was all that mattered in that moment. And we were celebrating all that we've done together. And it was an amazing feeling.
That's incredible, man. I'm reminded when you're saying that, I'm reminded kind of Simon Sinek talks about the infinite versus the finite game, right? And so one of the things that's nice about sports is that there is kind of an end, right? Like the next day after the World Series or maybe 1 week after, it's, okay, we're starting over. Like, who cares what happened last year? Now we're looking at next year. Versus in business, what you just said, it's never enough. Like, what's the next step? When's my next 100 employees? So on and so forth. How have you seen, and I'll even back up a little bit. So now you're going from, performance coach of the Yankees, getting these top athletes to their top performance levels, right? And now you're going over to the entrepreneurial, the business world, the corporate world, and really doing the same thing, right? So what are some of the things that you've seen that are similarities, right? How does this transpose from one side to the other?
So, like in sports, right, we have the start of a season, and the season is broken up into different parts. So the first part of your season is training. The next part of the season is the first half of the season. Then you have an all-star break. Then you have the second half of the season, and then you have 3 rounds of the playoffs, right? So, and then you have your championship series. So, and then you go into an off season. So it's very segmented. And what people don't realize is that in a lot of ways, so is business, right? So you talk about, an infinite game. And, I'm one of those guys where I actually disagree, because what I work to do, with the individuals and the teams that I work with is put them on sort of a structured plan and look at their year as if it's a season. So when you look at stateside here in America, we have different time periods of the year that are known as somewhat historical dead periods. You look at every business and there's cycles that many businesses experience. So, the closer we get to Thanksgiving here in the States, people start to wind it down. Not many deals are getting done around a couple days prior to, and even a few days after. So we know we have these little times within our year that I look at it as recovery weeks or these mini off seasons. The next time period we go usually December 1 through about December 20. And then from 20 to the second of the year is another off season. Mm-hmm. The other thing is when we look at the month of August, typically August is another pullback kind of month. Right. So many are saying, hey, and then I'm gonna give it a little bit of a rest. And then after Labor Day, when the kids go back to school, we're gonna start again. And that's the way I've always tried to lay out a business year for those that I work with, because it is absolutely unsustainable to go 100% throughout the whole year. And then what I do is when we are able to identify those periods of the year where we can give ourselves permission to have a mini off season or a mini break, we schedule something that's recreational, something that's recovery based for them. And then what I say is look at your year with those breaks included and ask yourself, hey, where could I go on a 4 to 6 week sprint where I'm going to go hard for 4 to 6? And then I'm going to digest and sort of assess what I just did. I'm going to go hard for 4 to 6, assess what I just did. And what you'll find is you do 2 or 3 sprints, and next thing you know, one of your little mini off seasons is on you for a recovery. And you got another sprint, and before you know it, the next one's on you. So it's important to actually sequence your year. And this is exactly what we do with the highest performing athletes in the world, because they play for money. Their career can either be very short or very long, depending on their health, their mindset, and most importantly, their performance.
I'm reminded, I had a professor in college, and he actually did this test. We had a project, and he did this for 10 years straight. There was one project that he assigned at the beginning of the year, and it was due at the end of the year, right? And then all of a sudden, he switched it. Actually, my grade, my year, whatever, was the first year he switched it, and he only gave us 1 week to do the exact same project. He waited till the end of the year. And his test was, shoot, normally when I sign this, people just wait and they procrastinate, right? And then, and basically he was testing this sprint idea, I guess, kind of in a way, right? Of like, hey, I'm going to give it to you 1 week. It's all I'm going to give it to you. You're going to focus, knock it out. And because of that focus, not only can you do it 10 times quicker, but it's going to be more efficient. It's going to be more drilled down and more, thought out, so to speak. Yeah. And he came to the conclusion that the projects that were done in 1 week were just as good, if not better, than those that were given the whole entire semester. This idea, this kind of psychological thing of time and what it represents. Exactly. That's interesting. So whenever when you're going through a business and you coach a lot of companies, and they're focused on these sprints, what's kind of the time frame that you're normally looking at? Is it normally like going by quarters? I mean, that's where kind of my mind goes in terms of.
I mean, we're looking at a quarter and we're saying, hey, how if we do a sprint, again, it also depends on the person, right? Some people, they can go hard for 4 weeks. Some people could go hard for 5. Some people could only go hard for 2, and then they have to pull out. So really, when you look at a quarter, you may get 2 to 3 sprints in per quarter. And it sort of goes against the grain of saying, hey, every day I'm going to go in and I'm going to kill it today. I'm going to go as hard as I can, as hard as I can, as hard as I can. I've seen the other side of that. Again, part of what I do, not just on the leadership side and the development side, I also work on people's physicality and helping them manage stress, manage burnout, manage anxiety. That's really what my background is in. Physiology. I have a degree in sports medicine, and it's understanding that we can only go so hard for so long. So you have to make a choice. There's some people that say, hey, I'm going to go as hard as I can I've seen this actually in Wall Street. Guys will go hard for 10 years, make a boatload of money, and they're fried out. You talk to them, it's as if their brains got burned out because they have nothing left. And I've seen a lot of guys, where I lived in New York, up in Westchester County, that were like that. And when you start to go over their habits, these were burn the candle on both ends type people for a sustained period of time. Yeah. And now they're totally cooked. So I'm more about sustained endurance over a long period of time and saying, hey, we're going to get to the top of the mountain, but we're not going to sprint to the top of the mountain. We're going to walk to the top of the mountain, and there's going to be days that we feel good. We could jog a little bit. There's going to be some days when we feel even better. We'll sprint, and then we give ourselves, we can walk again. So we don't always have to be sprinting. We don't always have to be jogging. And there's days when we can pull all the way back and just take it in. And one of my clients is a fantastic guy. He's a multi-billionaire. He's owned sports teams, made his money in healthcare, was the youngest CEO in Wall Street in the 80s. And by 38 years old, was a multi-billionaire. And he told me this. He said, remember that life and business is a balance between eating and digesting. And if you're eating all the time, you're going to get really fat. And if you don't give yourself enough time to digest, you're going to make some really bad decisions and some really poor choices, and everything's going to back up on you. So I never forgot that, because there's a lot of pressure in the marketplace today to do everything fast or to compete at the same speed as somebody else. But JC, I'm different than you. I may be a lot slower than you, and you may be a lot faster than me. But that could also be true for different times in our life. If I just got married, or if I just had a kid, you may be much faster than me. But when you go through the same life situations, I may be appearing to be faster than you. So an important thing that most people don't talk about is pace. Who are you? And what is your pace? I don't care what Gary Vaynerchuk is doing or anybody else. I'm Coach Dana Cavalea. You're JC. What's the best pace for you? And you have to own that pace. You may get to $1 million in a month. It may take me 10 years. And years ago, another guy that I know is Mark Mastrov, and he started 24-Hour Fitness, another sports team owner. And he told me, he said, Dana, it took me 10 years to build 20 gyms. It took me the next 10 years to build 200. He said, so, it's not about rushing. It's about success over time and really mastery during your build in whatever it is that you do, whether it's your physical body, whether it's your mind, whether it's your business, whether it's the departments and teams that make up your business, whether it's a product. Same thing. Another friend of mine is Kevin Plank, the CEO of Under Armour. And, he told me, he said, Dana, listen, for 7 years, I made one t-shirt, and I made it better and better and better every year. One t-shirt, one white t-shirt. He said, while my competitors that were starting at the same time, they were making shirts, they were making pants, they were making jackets. He said, I wanted to create the perfect t-shirt. He said, and when I got it right, I just sold it and sold it and sold it and sold it. He said, when I got into jackets, I wanted to create the perfect closure system. I didn't just want to put a regular zipper on a coat. I wanted to find the perfect zipper. So my coats would have a perfect closure system. And when you start thinking about mastery, you become less concerned with speed and more focused on being proud of what you're bringing to market, how you're doing it. And ultimately that leaves you in a position with great self-belief and conviction, which is what I've seen in many great athletes and many great entrepreneurs.
So, okay, a lot to unpack here. So we got pace, we got balance. A lot of this has to do, and I've seen you talk a lot on your YouTube and things like this about mindset, right? And that's been something for me, like something I've been very aware of lately. I did this journey a few months, right at the beginning of COVID. I never ran. I hate running. I hate running with a passion. All right. I think I have too much ADD. I start thinking, and I'm like, oh, I got to go home and do this, And I was like, you know what? I'm a big fan of Jesse Itzler, Jesse, owner of the Hawks. And he has this like calendar challenge where, okay, day 1, you run a kilometer or a mile. Day 2, you run 2, 3, 3, and so on and so forth through the calendar. And so I did it, right? So I never ran ever. And I did almost, 400 kilometers in a month. And And it was just like this. I was just on fire, right? Yesterday, just a month later, I tried to run a 5K, and I was just like, gosh, this sucks, And so then I'm like, what's the difference? Like, I know I can do it. So how have you seen mindset play into this stuff? Talk to me a little bit about this.
Well, listen, the Calendar Club is it's sort of a feats of strength type thing.
Mm-hmm.
You pump yourself up, you commit, and you attack, right? Very simple situation. The issue with that is it's very much like P90X or any other training program that gives you a start and an end. Because what the mind does and what you do is you buy yourself in for a set period of time.
Yes.
But the problem is you're not bought in past that time. And after you do 400, kilometers or whatever it is, who the hell wants to run again? So this is the same reason why people that go on these sort of low calorie squeeze diets, they lose 30, 40, 50 pounds and they put on 75 to 100. Because, your mind, and this goes for anything in your life, when you deprive, your mind seeks and it desires. And the body's very, listen, it's biochemistry 101, right? Your body's always looking for balance and it's always looking to keep itself regulated. So when you deprive or even over challenge, you're challenging your body's system at a really at a chemical level and a hormonal level. So the body's it doesn't know where it stands. Like, hey, what are we doing now? You just challenged me for 400 kilometers.
Yeah.
Now, are we doing that again? So your body's always trying to regulate itself. And even when we put people on weight loss programs, right? They get to a point, they lose in the first 14 days, they may lose 5 pounds. And then they say, Coach, I'm on a plateau. What's going on? And I said, your body has to trust you. The body is all about protecting itself. And we try to override it, but it'll always regulate itself. So you have to be really careful when you do any sort of extreme things.
Yeah.
And that's why my mentality is very different. I always believe in finding a challenge. Like if I were to put you on a running program, it would be a progressive running program. It would say, hey, you hate to run? Listen, do me a favor. I want you to just run for 5 minutes on Monday. And I want you to run for 5 minutes on Wednesday. And I want you to run for 5 minutes on Friday and tell me how you feel. And then what I'm going to do the next week is I'm going to bump your time, but I'm going to give you something to think about when you're running Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So we're going to do 10 minutes, but because you have an active mind, I'm going to give you something to think about while you're on that run. And something where you're distracted from the run, but you're running. And when you can do that and you work with somebody's psychology, you tend to not sort of hijack their physiology at the same time. You keep them moving towards a target in a way that is, something that they can handle. And then it also depends on what type of personality type you are. Some people are, I need a goal. I want metrics. I need numbers. Well, that person, you have to think about the relevance of that for them. So, I'm a big believer when it comes to coaching in business and sport. You got to know your athlete. You got to know your performer. And you have to meet them right where they are in real time and get real honest with them real quick. What do you want to achieve? And what do you like? Right? I use this example all the time when it comes to nutrition, like with kale. Kale's so good for you. Kale's amazing, we think, but if you hate it and you're never going to eat it, and I put it in your smoothie, I put it in your daily menu, I tell your chef, you're never going to eat it.
Never.
So why would I put it there? And that's the truth about so many things. So you can't always believe men's health, women's health, and all these publications that are out there that tell you what's good for you. We have to decide and discover what's good for you together.
I can't imagine that Jeter and A-Rod's plans were identical, right?
Totally different. I mean, and here's the thing. Again, these guys are really good at rewarding themselves. I mean, Derek Jeter, after every game, would have a bowl of vanilla ice cream. On every flight, Derek Jeter would have a couple chocolate chip cookies in the back of the plane.
Interesting.
Wait, they're not supposed to eat that. The best of the best, they didn't look at things as extremists.
Mm.
They looked at what it is that they were employed to do and hired to do, which was really their talent, and they put all their focus on that. But when they weren't doing that, they were really good at pulling out and living their life. People say, "Hey, what do these guys do?" They eat, they love movies, they love chicks, and that's what they do.
Yeah.
I mean, and they relax. They when they're on, and when they're off, they're totally off.
Now, you said there's a lot of differences, though, between coach and athlete. In fact, I think you actually said coaching CEOs is harder
Yes.
than coaching athletes like Jeter and A-Rod and all these guys. What have you seen as what's some of the biggest challenges that's frustrating with working with people like me versus them?
Well, I haven't worked with you, so I don't want to loop you in what I'm about to say next. But really, it's coachable versus uncoachable.
Yeah.
Coached versus never coached is really probably the better way of saying that. So when you think about most people, right, in their trajectory into the world of entrepreneurship or business or even a work environment, if somebody's working for somebody else, you go to college. Most of the time, many folks go to college. They learn a subject matter. They get an innovative idea and they go and work on it. They work and they work and they work and they work and they work. They're not actually, there's no habits that are being formed, built, and developed that are showing these people how to perform optimally. Where when we get an athlete into our system, right away, we're educating them on sleep. We're educating them on hydration. We're educating them on taking care of their body. We're educating them on pain management. We're educating them on mindset. We're educating them on how to improve their own blind spots and weakest links because we're looking for their weakest links, right? We have a whole team of scouts and people looking at that person and saying, hey, where is he weak? So that's that. I just want to go to the side for a second here. Where are they weak is a question that we always ask. We're always looking for where there's a limiting factor within the player because the mind in times of pressure, it doesn't go to where you're strongest. It goes to where you're weakest naturally. So when we work with players, we're always identifying weakness. Now there's a lot of talk in the world of business. Here's another split in the road where people are like, hey, double down on your strengths. That's all that matters. And I caution against that because you know what your strengths are. Your strengths are innate. They're natural. They're called the part of your talent set. But those weaknesses, if left not worked and not developed and not focused on at all to better that, they're going to be what swing around to hurt you. So just knowing that you're working on them, what does that do to your overall confidence? It elevates and it lifts it up. Yeah. So, you got to be really careful. And a lot of times in business, we run from our weaknesses and we just hire people to pick up and make up for them. But that shouldn't be something that allows you to keep those weaknesses there. And it's important to remember that. So, that's the biggest difference: coachability and coached versus not coached.
Yeah. I had a friend the other day that was talking to me. He said, hey, my weakness is finance. So I hired an accountant. I'm like, you got to learn it a little bit, brother, or else you're just looking for some fraud to happen or something bad to happen. It's
you should want to learn it. And listen, there's things. The reason that we dislike so many things, like even running or like finance, is because we really haven't had a good introduction to that subject matter, and it hasn't been taught to us in a way that we enjoy or a way that we relate to. So we say, I don't like the feeling I get. It jams me up. I don't even want to look at my numbers. I don't want to look at my books. It's like when you watch the Shark Tank and they say, tell me your numbers. And the people that hate their numbers. They don't like to look at them. They're afraid of them. But that's also the reason why they don't get a deal.
That's right.
Because they're vulnerable.
That's right. It's my wife is very I'm a numbers guy, like numbers. So when I go to the gym, I know exactly my max on every single deal. I'm always trying to beat it. like, I don't know, football, baseball, basketball, sports, and said numbers. That's all of course, business, right? My wife is completely the opposite, right? If you say, hey, babe, you did 100 last week, let's try to do 105. Why? Like, does even, so it's got to be completely, how we're motivated is completely different. And she's definitely not coachable. Definitely not coachable. She might kill me if she heard me say this. So hopefully,
but you know what? She, I've also said this too. Some people are actually very content with where they are, and that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah,
it's I call this the curse of the high performer. The curse of the high performer is, when is enough enough? And if I'm not moving forward, I'm falling behind. So I have to always be moving forward. So therefore, I can't stop. Right? You can't hit a moving target.
Yeah. Yeah, and she's like that, man. I mean, as long as I'm home every day at 6 with phone away and just focused on family, and of course she has the car and she's happy as a June, So
and that's a good balance for somebody like you.
It's very, very good balance. Yeah, it's a hard balance sometimes, but it's very, very good. Man, this has been awesome. Really, really awesome, actually. So a couple of big things. The sprint is something, honestly, I've even, outside of like project management for like building a technology system where you have a sprint, but in terms of business, I hadn't really thought of that way. And I really like that. What you mentioned about the balance between eating and digesting, I had to write that one down. That's going to be good. You got the book already, Habits of a Champion, but you got a new one coming out here pretty soon. Tell me about that a little bit.
Yeah, I'm hoping right before the holidays. It's going to be called Habits of a Champion Team. So I wrote Habits of a Champion, which was just really, it's really a lot of stories that include some of what I told you today, just in terms of mindset and strategy. But it's really a book that I wrote as a relatable handbook and resource for people because, I pick up so many books. Being a coach, I'm always acquiring knowledge and deciphering through it and see how I can apply it to those that I work with. And, I'd read so many books that were how to optimize performance and how to be a success and all this. And, I was so fortunate because each day I got to go watch some of the, again, most successful people in the world in sport and business. And so I'd read this book and then I'd go and I'd see what the best of the best actually do. And I would see a major gap. And I said, you know what? There's two types of books that are written in this world. There's books that are based on classroom and theoretical models. Yes. And then there's books that are real. And I said, I never want to write a theoretical book, ever. So that's how I wrote Habits of a Champion. And then once I wrote the book, I started working with a lot more teams, in business and in sport. And I said, I got to write a book on how to run a team that also includes, how to be a part of a team. So that's what Habits of a Champion Team is about. It's about, how to run a team, but also how to be a part of a team. And, when you enable people, they become disabled. And that's really a big takeaway from the book. So, you also have to know the kind of organization that you want to run. Are you a high training focused and development focused organization? Or are you an organization that says, hey, we're a self-starting organization. I need people that are free thinkers, think for themselves. And as a leader, I embrace that.
Yeah.
So that determines who we hire and how we hire. So, it's all connected, but my biggest focus in life is always, the person behind the performance. So, and the person behind the title. So if you're the CEO, I'm not going to say, there he is, there's JC, he's the CEO. I'm going to say, there's JC. What's his strengths? What's his weaknesses? As I see them, as others see them, and most importantly, as he sees them. And let's go to work.
I like it. Focusing on those weaknesses there and improving them. How can people follow you, man? Where's the best place to reach out, follow you? Instagram, Twitter, website?
Yeah. I'm on all that stuff. You can get to all my stuff on DanaCavalea.com. I do a daily blog Monday through Friday that I, quick 90-second reads that are quick and easy. And, I'm on Instagram, The Real Coach D, LinkedIn, Dana Cavalea, and Twitter, Coach Dana Cavalea. So, I'm a little bit everywhere, but I make my home base, my website.
I love it, brother. Well, I appreciate it. Looking forward to what you got going on. Looking forward to the book. Looking forward to reading it. Hope you have a good one, man.
You
All
too.
right.
Thank you.
Awesome.